Hey everyone, it's Monday and time for another episode of Monday Mastery. Hi, I'm Rick Sodebeer, dating coach and relationship coach, and I'm here to help you make better decisions about the people you date and the relationships you get into. So today's we'll wait for just a minute here. It's to get a couple of people on board here, and it's been a gorgeous few days up here. I think over the weekend we did have some rain. We had a couple of good storms roll through, but we needed the rain up here, and so that was nice. It was a little windy, a little too windy for me to go sailing, which I was hoping to get done this weekend. But there's always this week and next weekend, so we'll see. So anyway, I hope you guys had a great week last week and a fun weekend. This week, I want to talk about hanging on too tight. And it could be hanging on to anything too tightly. It could be hanging on to a past relationship. It could be hanging on to a current relationship or a current partner you're hanging on too tight. It could be material things. There are some of us that just acquire things and we have a hard time letting go. And it could be letting go of conversations, negative conversations or toxic conversations. Sometimes it's just sometimes it's not worth the effort to have some of these conversations. And I got into one with someone this weekend regarding a post that she had put on Facebook. And I simply made a comment, and she came back with the long knives. And it was like, okay, whatever. Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. Oh, I'm going to share this one. Sylvia says, it's hot here too. It's in the hundreds, not nice. Used to it, but hot. My car read 113 inside. Ouch. Now, it's warm here, but when I say warm, we had, I think over the weekend, we had 90 or 91. Today is about 80, 81 or 82. So it's just awesome here. It's a little humid. And so, but that's okay. So anyway, hey Sam, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. So anyway, we all tend to, from time to time, depending on what it is, we all tend to hang on to something too tightly. I've hung on to relationships or to partners too tightly. I was very restrictive, and in my last relationship, I just went with the flow. She did what she needed to do, what she wanted to do. I trusted her, and that's an awesome place to be. And when you're with someone, you got to let them have their space. You have to let them be able to come and go. Now, if there are trust issues, or if they've done things that would cause you to have trust issues, then that might be time not to hang on tighter, but to have a conversation to see what's going on and what you can do to feel more comfortable with the situation, or what they can do to make you feel more comfortable. In the end, you have to be comfortable with them coming home, and coming home to you. And and again, this is just not relationships. It's about anything. It might be about material things. One of the things that I learned when I started going through my divorce is, we started splitting up assets and figuring out who was going to get what and what we were going to sell. And, I ended up selling a couple of my prized possessions just to be able to move on, because I came to the realization it's just stuff. Hey, Shar, thanks for joining in. Let's see. Shar says, hello from Aiken. We all need time to be alone and breathe, even in a great relationship. In fact, that contributes to a great relationship. Absolutely. We all need our own space. As I shared in my book, and it's a little bit cliche. Ladies need their spa days, or their bathtub time with candles and bubbles and relaxing music, whatever it is. And guys need their golf days or their sports days, or whatever it is, their garage time, whatever that might be. We all need that space. And when we're hanging on too tightly, we don't allow our mates that space. When we're hanging on too tightly to possessions, we become too wrapped up with those things and too invested in those things, and we create an emotional attachment to them. And when you start creating an emotional attachment to things, it starts to degrade your other relationships. Again, like I said, there were assets of mine that we sold that were very precious to me, but when I realized it's just stuff, none of us can take any of this stuff with us. It's you're here today and you're gone tomorrow, and unfortunately, all too many of us get wrapped up in hanging on too tight. Conversations, we get wrapped up too tight in conversations, and I admit that I do too. Like I mentioned, you get wrapped up in all invested in comments on a controversial post on Facebook, and pretty soon people are coming out of the woodwork that you don't even know and attacking you. And it might have been nothing derogatory towards the person. It was just an observation or a comment. And we get so invested, we get all emotional, and we start typing back, and everybody goes crazy over some of this stuff, and we just have to learn to let some of this go. Guys, we tend to be worse at relationships and the giving your lady freedom to do the things she needs to do. I had somebody that I worked with that dated a couple of guys that had to be there, had to be there when she went grocery shopping, be there when she went to get her nails, her mani and her pedi, had to be there at her doctor's appointments. Now, sometimes that's okay, but for general checkups, no. It's you don't need to be that clingy. You don't need to attach yourself to your partner that tightly. She's an adult. Although she should have been an adult and said, "No, this relationship's over. You're too possessive, and that just doesn't work for me." So, what are some of the things that you guys are attached to? Is it a mate? Is it a thing? Is it a conversation? What is it? And let's talk about some of that stuff. And why? Why do we become attached? Are we afraid are we afraid of losing something that we don't want? We can't bear the results of the loss. Shar says, both of my daughters are married to their soulmates and have been for many years, and part of those great marriages or relationships flourish because they personally give each other time to do things with the guys or the girlfriends. And one stays home with the kids so they can go. And that's an awesome way to be able to share time. And that's a great way of giving to your partner, giving them what they need. We all come across, or we all from time to time need that space. And gosh, that's my mind just went in 12 different directions at the same time. And my little squirrel moment is that and well, you guys can't see it on the screen. My my shirt almost matches the color of the Captain Jack in the back, and then the sub screen down here. So anyway, sorry about that. It's just little squirrel moments today. And let's see. Sylvia says, "Oh wow, honestly, I don't attach to anything material. I've lost so much, I just let it go. Going alone almost 3 years." Well, and that's awesome that you can just let things go. But there are so many people that my ex, oh my gosh, she was almost to the point where she was a hoarder. And it's just extremely difficult to when you live with somebody like that. And number one, if you don't consider assets important or things important, to have a partner that just collects everything. And I used to laugh. I used to get promotional pens in the mail when I was a financial advisor. And they send you this promotional stuff in hopes that you'll buy 1,000 pens. And I instantly knew that envelope was to go to my wife at the time, because she would save the pen. And when we no longer worked together, I threw out hundreds of pens that she had collected over the years. And Samantha, thanks for joining in, Samantha. Says, "I've never been with anyone I don't trust. If I don't trust them, I wouldn't date them." Well, that's now, Samantha, have you been with somebody that was clingy, or didn't want to let you go, or didn't want to let you do the things that Samantha says promotional pens are the best. Crafting. All right. But and Samantha brings up a good point. If you're not trusting enough to be in that relationship, you shouldn't be there. Or if they're not trusting of you, you shouldn't be there. There has to, unless you've obviously created something that a reason for them to not trust you. That's not a healthy relationship. Shar says, "Al and I also encouraged each other to do adventures with our friends. Example, the girls did a road trip from Florida to Charleston, and the guys went sailing on the Chesapeake Bay. We all came home with fun stories to share." See, those are great ways to keep your relationship or your marriage healthy. Where you do separate things and you have separate experiences that you can share with your partner. But again, going back to hanging on too tightly, I've experienced, with certain relationships, and I don't know whether there's a couple of relationships that I've had that I've hung on to the memories, to the thoughts, way too long, and it bordered on, it didn't border, it was full blown exaholism. And exaholism is where you just have this connection with someone that it just makes you crazy that relationship has ended, even though it's the wrong relationship, even though it's toxic for you, and even though that it wouldn't be a good relationship long term. There's just something about certain relationships that you just want to hang on to, or that just make it hard to let go. Samantha says, "Exaholism, good one." There is actually there is actually a book out there, and it is a very, very good book. If you've ever experienced hanging on to somebody too tightly after you've broken up, or you've gone back a number of times, and I'll have to look it up, and I'll share it later. But it's something along the line of exaholics or exaholism. I think it's exaholics. And Samantha says need an exahol exorcism. Well, when that's more true than you might think. But like I said, there are just certain relationships that are extremely hard to let go of. And whether you call it, whether you're an exaholic or whether you're just hanging on too tight because of the memories, it doesn't make any difference. That connection is going to hamper you moving forward. And the part of the point of this is that you need to be able to let go of past relationships. You need to let go of certain things in life to be able to move forward. It's looking at a couple of the relationships that I hung on to much longer than I needed to. It slowed me down in moving on. It took me longer to heal from those two particular relationships, and one was in my very, very early years, my early 20s, and the other one was in my 50s. So it doesn't make any difference how old you are. We still find those relationships where we end up hanging on. And sometimes that comes from, you think you find somebody that is that has high potential to be the one, to be your soulmate, to be your extraordinary mate, your extraordinary relationship, that you go all in. And and ladies, you're more apt to do this than guys, but guys, we do it. We do it too. That we go all in on this relationship. We invest all of our emotions in this relationship, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, even if you've invested yourself, you come to realize that no, this isn't the right relationship, and have to break it off. It becomes very difficult. Because you've got so many emotions tied up here, and some of it is fantasy based. That when we walked into this relationship, we expected this person to be a certain way, and as we move through the relationship or into the relationship, and got to know them better, we start to discover, well, that's not quite the way I anticipated, but okay, we'll go with that. And pretty soon you find yourself changing or morphing to adjust to this person, in spite of the fact that you're already starting to recognize, no, this isn't quite the relationship I want or was expecting out of this person. A lot of times we impose our own vision of what they should be on them when that's not who they are. Let me catch up here real quick. Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in. Char says, I'm guilty of that. And actually, so do the men involved. Like you said, even when you know it won't work, it's hard to walk away. Absolutely. But that's when you have to step out of your head or step away from your heart and start thinking with your head and making decisions based on what you know is right for you. You got to have the adult conversations. Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in. Yes, discovery can be disappointing. Oh, absolutely. Sam says, for a few months, I was overly attached to my fiancée. She is the first and only relationship that isn't transactional. I craved her almost like an addiction because this is so different. And That is so true, Sam. Those are very true words. So a healthy relationship that I didn't know how to accept that she wants nothing but love from me. Every other woman traded affection for stuff and things. I saw my part and backed off. Fortunately, before it was too late. And exactly. And when and Sam, you bring up some really good points there, because if we've been in nothing but poor relationships, or as Sam calls them, transaction-based relationships, where I give you this and you give me that in return, those aren't healthy relationships. But if that's all you know, that's what you know is normal. That's a normal relationship. And then you get into a relationship where she gives you all the attention that you could possibly want and loves you unconditionally, then it's like, holy crap, what's going on? What do I do with this? And then we back off. And sometimes we need to back away because other parts of the relationship are not right. But other times if we back off, hopefully you have a partner, if it's a healthy relationship, but you're just not used to that condition or that level of attention, affection. It's hopefully your mate is strong enough to hang in there and go slow with you. Hey Karen, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. So there are just so many aspects of relationships that we have to pay attention to, and hanging on too tightly or not hanging on tightly enough. That can be a flip side of the problem here is guy, and I think this is more of a guy thing, that we don't pay enough attention to our ladies, that they don't feel secure in the relationship, that you're paying attention to them, or that they're satisfying you, or they're making you happy, or whatever it is, whatever aspect of the relationship it is. We have to make sure that we're paying attention, and whether that is paying attention to their love languages, and that's really one of the strongest ways of connecting with somebody, is speaking their love language. And that's why I feel it's so important to find a mate that speaks a similar love language to you, so that it's so much easier to communicate, especially in the beginning. Now, as you move down the road, you can learn their other love languages, but when you speak their primary love language and they speak yours, it makes life so much easier, and you connect on a much deeper level. Samantha says, definitely a guy thing. That's when I bail. Needs not being met. Ciao. There you go. And that's right. And and don't misunderstand me, ladies. There are some women out there also that are very aloof, that are very into their own thing, and if they have time for you, okay. And if not, then you just are left, and I've experienced this with a couple of people that I've met, a couple of ladies that I've met. Sam says, it did take time to recognize this normality, that I'm good enough just as I am. Yes. See, and that's another thing, that you are who you are today. It doesn't mean, Sam, and that doesn't mean that you can't get better along the way, or there aren't things that you can improve on, but they have to be things that you want to improve on. I'm very much a proponent of ongoing learning, continual, as Tony Robbins calls it, continuous and never-ending improvement. or constant and never-ending improvement. And it's so true, because we should go through life continuing to grow, become better persons for ourselves. And then what happens is you become a better person for your mate or for your partner. And Samantha says, sorry, Samantha, I almost shortened your name there. Both need to be emotionally available at the same time. Timing truly is critical. You can't take it personally. It's often simply about timing. Well, I agree. There's a lot of times when you meet somebody and it's just whether it's work or a relationship they've just ended, or and I find this very true with widows and widowers, that many times they start dating way too soon, and they're just not emotionally healthy enough. And it's not meant derogatorily, please. And Shari, you know that as well as anyone. It's not meant derogatorily. It just means there are things that you have to go through. You have to pass through certain phases. You know, the first year is the year of fog and the year of firsts. You know, you're just moving through life day to day, just trying to figure out what to do next. And then obviously it's the year of first, you know, the first anniversary, the first birthday, the first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving, first New Year's, all without that partner, you know, and first Valentine's Day. Hey, Lindy, thanks for joining in. Lindy says, I agree about the timing aspect, 110%. And Sam says, and about being able to honestly and openly communicate your needs and feelings, and to genuinely hear theirs. Yes. Oh gosh, that's a huge one, Sam. You know, you have to be able to, and guys are you know, excuse me for picking on you, Sam, but you and I are, you know, as guys, we're much less likely to share our feelings and our emotions because we're brought up to be tough, manly men. You know that you know, you cut your leg off with it's a scene from Jeff Foxworthy's one of his comedy tour. He pretends he cuts his leg off with a chainsaw, talking about how tough men. It's just a flesh wound, and he's hopping around on one leg. So. I digress. But we're, you know, as boys, we're taught that we shouldn't cry, that we shouldn't show emotions, and it becomes a problem as adults that we carry that through. And Lord knows there are times that I hide tears, and I know I shouldn't. And being able to share your thoughts and feelings with that special someone next to you is priceless. And that. Ladies, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when he starts sharing what's going on with him, that just endears him more to you than him being silent. You know, he's letting you deep into his world. Hey, Gina, thanks for joining in. Shar says, don't hide tears. Yeah, I know. But, you know, with 60 some years of experience behind me, you know, there are certain things that I will reveal, and other things that I just kind of say, yeah, I'm keeping that one on the down low. That's for me only. And Samantha says, exactly. But early on, before it's a committed monogamous relationship, that's a tricky one. When men vomit their emotions or truths at me, I run the hell away. It's too much too soon. Again, timing matters. I think that's a good point. And there has to be a certain... I think you have to achieve a certain level of comfort, a certain level of connection before you start sharing some of those things. You know, there are times that as I've dated throughout the years, you know, the last 11 years, I've been, I've met a couple of women that we'd get on the phone and start talking, and just her probing questions and the way they came out, they dug up emotions, and to this day, I look back and I think about some of the questions she asked, and to this day, I'm perplexed at how she was able to dig up some old emotions that I had put to rest. We all go through emotions. We all go through trauma, I guess, emotional trauma from breakup or from a divorce or from the loss of a spouse. And when you go through that, you work through it. You over time the pain lessens, and eventually you just pack that stuff away. And then someone comes along that you're getting to know, and they somehow have the key to that trunk. And all of a sudden, you're processing all of these emotions again. It's like, holy crap! Where did that come from? I wasn't expecting that, and maybe it was something I needed to deal with again. I don't know, but it was difficult for me to move past that conversation because of the way she just dug things up in me. And I don't know if any of you have experienced that before, but that was an unusual conversation. Shar says, I appreciate when a man will share his innermost feelings with me. I take it that he really wants me to understand him and where he is with us. Absolutely. Hey, Phil, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. Yeah, Shar, that's exactly right. And I think there comes a point in time when sharing is very important. Being able to connect with somebody emotionally on a much deeper level than you have really starts to strengthen and deepen the relationship. But if it's in the first couple of dates, like Samantha was referring to, let's see what Samantha has. Yeah, I consider I consider that nosy and intrusive. Again, this is pre-relationship, not within a committed monogamous relationship. Absolutely. Yeah, we were just getting to know each other. We hadn't even met yet, and it was more of a discovery. And that conversation felt more like an interrogation than a getting to know you. And yeah, Lanny, hey Lanny, thanks for joining in. Sharing is caring, and he says, but not too much sharing. Yeah, and that becomes a fine art in itself. I tend to be, for me personally, I'm an open book. You ask me something, and I'm going to tell you. And so I always preface my conversations with, if you don't want to know, don't ask. So those can be very difficult conversations to have, but sometimes as you're getting to know someone, they're important conversations. There may be things that are revealed in those conversations that may be deal breakers for you, or they could be endearing, either one. But you don't know until you find out. You don't know until you share. And if you're uncomfortable, if somebody asks you a question, you can say, yeah, not right now. I don't know you well enough to share those deep thoughts or those deep feelings or deep emotions that I went through. And unfortunately for me, I tend to be, you ask me the question, I'm going to answer it. I don't like, I don't want to feel like I'm hiding anything or reserving anything for some later time. Let's get it on the table. For me, and this is me. Let's get it on the table, get it out of the way. If it's a deal breaker, fine, let's move on. And before we get any emotions wrapped up in a relationship, and then you find out, well, holy cow, why didn't you tell me that? 3 months ago, that would have been a deal breaker for me. So anyway, Char says, I'm where you are, straight shooter. And, at my age, at our age in general, it doesn't pay to be anything but a straight shooter, Char. Samantha says, if I answer questions like that early, I've already written them off as being too pushy. And that's okay. It's we all have our personal limits, and it's important to recognize what those limits are. And for me, I've just come to recognize that while they may not be truly comfortable conversations, they can be very productive conversations. And they can either be endearing or not. And you can start to develop a deeper connection, or you can feel that like Samantha, you can say, "Hey, that's way too much, way too soon." But then, for me, I'm not a big fan of superficial conversations. Hey, the weather's great. How you doing today? How was your day? And don't misunderstand me. Those are good questions. Those are great topics to learn about your partner's day or the person's day. But there are times that, for the most part, I enjoy the deeper conversations. I enjoy the light ones too, but it's kind of a mix for me, and hopefully it is for some of you too. Hey, Addie, thanks for joining in. Not at all. Welcome. You're always welcome, Addie. So it's yeah, you're going to have to catch up, laddie. But you're pretty good about jumping in and figuring out. We're talking about hanging on to certain aspects of relationships too tightly, or hanging on to relationships too tightly. And right now we're talking about conversations, what you share, what you don't share. And that just brings up another point that and I'll pose this question specifically to you, Samantha, is are you, when you don't want to get into deeper conversations or deeper intellectual or deeper personal conversations, is it because you're guarded and you have a pretty high wall that has to be overcome before you start sharing that information? Or is it just that it's just nobody's business until you're comfortable with who you're talking to, or feel some trust that it's not going to be that it's not going to come back to bite you? Samantha says, I can't stand when men purge their prior relationships at me when I'm not even sure if I like them yet. Well, that's just bad dating style. That's somebody that's truly not emotionally ready to start dating. And when you find somebody like that, that should be a huge red flag that says, nope, if they're still hanging on to past relationships, and have to vomit their relationship life to you, they've probably been jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship without taking time to heal or grieve and heal from the loss of those relationships, and to figure out what went right and what went wrong. And that's what you should all be doing when a relationship ends. And more times than not, you get into a relationship and they will end until you find your soulmate or your extraordinary relationship. Sam says to reiterate the timing point, these conversations very early on do tend to push people away. But when the situation evolves into a relationship, it's better to be open and honest. Holding on to old hurts will affect your current relationship. Absolutely. And that's why hanging on to memories, to past relationships, emotionally, is so damaging to being able to move forward. Because as long as you're carrying that baggage around, you're not emotionally available to start connecting with somebody new, because you're still focused on that past relationship. And as long as your focus is still on that past relationship, you're not available emotionally for the next person. And that's something that just needs to be. I wish I could drill that into everybody. You've got to take time to heal, even a short relationship. Even just a few months, you need to take a little time and back away and process and move on. Shar says, depends on the topic, and I had an important confession come at me at an initial meeting. It was important for him to share what he wanted me to know. My response was surprise and really shocked that I completely understood his dilemma and made him understand why it should not be a worry for him. He never thought he would meet a woman that would understand. Can't divulge his conversation, but not the first time I heard or experienced that, and he was beyond thankful and relieved. Well, that's an interesting point, Shar. When especially when guys are bearing their souls to someone, and I'm not necessarily, unless it's something that's very relevant to, whether it's a make or break deal for someone. Some of those conversations should be held for a little bit later until you have some comfort level. And I'm kind of like Samantha there. There are certain things that when you reveal certain things, I understand. And Samantha, I totally get where you're coming from when it comes to that. So Sylvia says, but you don't even notice you're carrying the baggage sometimes. That's exactly right. But the way to figure that out, Sylvia, is to think about the conversation. If you had a great date, think about the conversation. What did you talk about? What did you share? Were you talking about your past relationships? Were you talking about your bad marriage? Were you talking about is that what the main focus of your conversation was? How terrible it was? Or was it, I had a bad marriage and this happened, and then you move on? Or were you dwelling on that? And, as we date, people want to know why we got a divorce. People want to know why relationships didn't last or didn't work. That's important information to know. Not necessarily on the first conversation, not necessarily on the first date. You need to develop a level of trust. Number one, that at least for me, that what I share with somebody is not going to end up in a circle of friends that I may be hanging out with. I need to be confident that whoever I share something with is going to keep it confidential, because my life is very private. If you look at my Facebook page, you see very little of my private life. It's basically all business. So I'm very for me, and maybe that's part of the way I was brought up, that certain things are kept certain personal things are kept private. And Samantha says, I'm not going to be some guy's therapist. That's Rick's role. I'm not paid enough to heal anyone other than my kids. Yeah, well, I'm not a therapist either, Samantha. I'm a coach. And if somebody comes to me with deep-seated problems, I'm referring them on to a therapist also. I'll deal with the high-level stuff. Well, why? What am I doing wrong when I'm dating, or what am I? When we start sharing conversations about what you talked about, and then we move on from there. But yeah, if somebody's got some deep-seated issues about past relationships, I'm just not there. I'm like you. So anyway, and there's been some really good comments in here, and I really appreciate those. So keep them coming. We'll go for another few minutes here. There was a brain fart. No, so it is important to gauge when to reveal things. And again, Sylvia, going back to your comment, the best way there are several ways that you can tell whether you're hanging on too tightly or you haven't let go of past relationships. If you find yourself thinking about that relationship throughout the day, if you find yourself talking about that relationship to your friends, if you find yourself sharing almost excessively about that relationship when you're on a date. So those are some instant cues that, I'm probably not past this yet. When you get to a point where you don't give that past relationship a second thought throughout the day, you can go weeks without thinking about that relationship, then you're past it, or for the most part. When you can go on a date and say, that relationship over, it ended because boom, and then move on, then the conversation can progress to another question or to another level. But again, when you hang on to it, it does you no good, and it's only going to turn off those that want to get to know you. And as you date, the longer you date, or the longer you're in the dating pool, so to speak, the easier it is to recognize those that haven't healed. It's like I said last week or the week before when we were talking about online dating. You can tell anger in some of the profiles that you read, just by their opening line. It says, "Don't talk to me if you're a scammer." Well, like that's going to chase a scammer away. It may actually attract them by saying, there's a challenge. I want to go for that one and see if I can fool her again. And so, but there's, when you're online, you can read profiles, and a lot of times you can tell when people are still hurting from their last breakup or from past relationships. And it comes across very quickly and very negatively. And it's like, I really am not, swipe left or, next or whatever it is, and, if there's no smile on the face on any of your pictures, that's a dead giveaway. You're not happy. You haven't gotten rid of that anger or hostility or sadness or whatever it is that you're carrying along with you. So, Sylvia, to go back to you, if you have any of those things, or if you got any of those things going on, if you don't see yourself smiling in your pictures, if you don't see yourself letting those thoughts, and from time to time somebody's going to pop in your head, but if they're in your head continually, you have to take some time to evict them, and don't let them live rent free in your head. And Samantha says, some people enjoy finding commonalities over shared baggage, but the danger there is that eventually one of them will heal, and then the other goes on. The other goes the basis of and there goes the basis of and then there goes the basis of the bond. Oh Lord, I'm having a problem tonight. One gets left behind while the other soars forward in life. Some people just like company in their misery. Absolutely. It's like the saying goes, misery loves company. So, and that's another aspect. If you're finding people to commiserate with, that's a true sign that you haven't healed from that relationship. There are some people, and there are just some people that you'll meet that just thrive on drama. And they will actually create their own drama just so they have something to complain about. They're not happy, and and that's. I used to give my ex-wife a hard time. She used to love watching soap operas, and when you really look at it, and please forgive me if any of you love soap operas, if any of you love The Bachelor or Bachelorette, or any of these other quote unquote reality TV. It's because you thrive on other people's drama. You thrive on other people's pain. And maybe it feels good for a few minutes, but it's not real. So forgive me if any of you love those shows. Oh, I just, somebody was sharing with me a TV show, Married at First Sight, and she basically, I'd never heard of it, but basically explained the premise that there's a therapist and a pastor or somebody, several people that from various fields that go through applications and try to connect people. And I personally believe that anybody professionally that participates in those shows should be disbarred or unlicensed, or it's just because that's just a recipe for disaster. It's a train wreck in the making. And Phil says, I'm so glad that my late wife of 25 years, who I lost from cancer, we talked all the time to understand each other better. And that's the way it should be. It's great, when you're in a relationship and you're connecting with your partner. Great communication, and you have to be able to talk about anything and everything, even the conversations that are hard. Sylvia says, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that much anymore. Just sometimes when alone, it brings wonder to me if I have done everything right. But I guess it's trial and error, no anger, or I'll have to charge rent, right? Absolutely." And Sylvia, and I wasn't, I'm not picking on you, but I'll sit back every once in a while and I'll have my own little pity party when I have friends of mine or acquaintances that I know that end up in a relationship. Well, they've only been divorced 3 years. I've been divorced 11. What the heck? How did they find their soulmate? Why haven't I found mine? Then I have my little pity party that I'm still single, and then I move on. But we all go through that from time to time. Did I make a mistake with this person? Did I make a mistake with that one? And no, I think for the most part, yeah, I've made mistakes along the way. Don't misunderstand me. But in ending relationships, I'm pretty satisfied with all of the ones that I've ended. And Samantha says, I just started America's Top Model from 2013. Don't tell me who wins. I didn't even know there was. I guess maybe I do recall that from years and years ago. So no, I don't know, so I can't tell you. And Sylvia says, exactly. I need a pity party. Well, we all do. We all deserve that once in a while, but not ongoing. Addie says, I have pity parties too from time to time. Yeah, it's all part of the healing process. You wonder, why is it taking so long? Why isn't God bringing me my soulmate? And then you have to step back and say, well, how active are you? What are you doing to promote yourself as or to market yourself as being available, as being single? Are you online? Are you out being social? And I know this last year has been a bugger to try to be social, but there are still ways to do it. There's still ways to connect with people. So it takes effort. We all have to put in effort, and the more effort you put in, the more dates you have, the closer. With each no that you come across, you get one step closer to yes. I mean, it's just that simple. It is all a matter of numbers. And Addie says, I wonder how the heck that slob found someone yet. Here I am. Yeah, I get it. Apparently she didn't have high standards. When's the next group happy hour? Samantha, are you talking about my meetup group? Because that is coming up on, if that's what you're asking, that is coming up on August 10th. And that will be at Fox and Hound in Kansas City. Thank you for asking. I hope you'll be there. Kathy says, I have poor pitiful me on my playlist. It's fun to hear it in many different emotions. Well, and having a pity party is okay, but not on a regular basis. So those are things you need to work through. And if you're continually having a pity party, deal with the emotions and figure out what's bothering you, and you have to figure out from there what's going to get you out of that funk, so to speak. Addie says, I wish I could come up north every blue moon. Well, that would be fun. You're always welcome. Everybody on the podcast or the webcast or whatever we call it these days is welcome. You're more than welcome. And but it's for those of you that are in the Kansas City metro area. I have a meetup group, and it's called Kansas City Singles Mingle, and we just get together. And there are other organizers that put other events on, but we have one main event a month that I sponsor. And it's last month we had, it was a big group. We had about 80 or 85 people get together, and it was fun. And it's all about socializing, connecting, making a couple new friends. Addie says, Kansas City North, I mean. Yeah, I've done a couple up there, Addie, and turnout was miserable. And I did one, we had pretty good attendance. The second one, over 50% never showed up. Samantha says, the last one was off the hook. So much fun. Glad you enjoyed it. And so anybody in the Kansas City metro area, come on, I'll be back in town, and we'll get together and we'll have a drink and have a conversation and go from there. And with that, I think we pretty much wrapped up the topic for today. I hope it was good for you. It was good for me. And if you liked it, share it on Facebook with your friends, and let others hear the conversations that we're having and the topics that we're covering, and hopefully it will help them too and help them move forward. You're very welcome, Samantha. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Literally, I'll be back next Monday, and what the topic is, if you have subjects that you would like to cover, let me know. I'd be more than happy. I am starting to look for guests. I'm working on a couple right now that you've probably never heard of, but they're in various parts of the country. And one gal was supposed to be on here tonight. She's actually from England. She's a dating and relationship coach in England, and she had some things come up that she couldn't make it tonight. But I'm looking for a couple of others that maybe once a month we'll have a guest speaker and share some fun thoughts and experiences and give you new perspectives from somebody other than me. So anyway, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great and blessed week. I love you guys for tuning in. And thank you for all the great comments tonight, especially and ladies, I know you're always here, but I love hearing from the guys too, Lanny and Phil, and who am I missing? And Sam. Sam's there. And I know I'm missing somebody else. Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. Anyway, please forgive me. So thank you, especially to the guys, because I love getting your comments, and I know the ladies love hearing that too. So anyway, thank you, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Monday Mastery live at 5.